Hey guys, what have I been reading now? So, this is when the whole habit started. This whole reading me opponent's books. So the bit of build up to this. But about 2020, I had my wake up call. And that was when I discovered anarchism and libertarianism and libertarian socialism, individualist anarchism and all that stuff. I got sucked into it. And I was reading those books for like 2 years, non-stop. Like I say, Amazon's fantastic for that, actually. Getting the obscure books made in the 1800s, lots of philosophers that you've never heard of. Just kind of piggybacking from one book to the other, just eating them. Loved that shit. All sorts of anarcho-mutualism. And I was like, this is my thing. Love it. And I got to a point where I was like, how can anyone argue for states anymore? They're so clearly the bad guys. They're so clearly the organised criminals of the world. So I was thinking, I need to read a book that's pro-state. And who's more pro-state than Mr. Statecraft himself, Henry Kissinger? World Order. Aptly named. So, let's get into this one. Because this one's an interesting old thing. This gave me a taste for opponents' ideology books. And I would recommend, before you start reading them, you find out what you are. Because it makes the experience a whole lot better. You can just kind of, it reflects on you differently. Here's what I discovered on this book. Ironically. You know how the conspiracy theorists, like the big thing about conspiracy theorists is, oh yeah, who's the they? And there's a big conspiracy and there's a group of people deciding what goes on with the world. Yeah. This book says it. Like, it's not a conspiracy though. He just says it. He just basically admits there's a group, well, it's not a group, he doesn't really name them. He names what to do. So here's what happens in this book. It should be called, this book, The Westphalian System. Now, I've never heard of the Westphalian System. And I've been a conspiracy theorist full time for like 4 years now. Never ever heard of it. And it's never talked about on the news. So what is the Westphalian System? Basically what this book says, and you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, because, you know, there's probably pro-propaganda shit in there. But like you said, the Americans caught and killed bin Laden. How man. So, you know, you got to take it with a pinch of salt. But what he said was the Westphalian system was, round about the 1600s, there was a thing called the 30 Years' War. When all of these nations in Europe were all fighting each other. And it was dead bloody, dead bad. So these, funny how he talks about it, unnamed representatives from these countries, from these warring nations, got together in a town called Westphalia. Never heard of the place either, but apparently they met there and they discussed a peace organization, and it became known as the Westphalian System. So what the Westphalian System is if you agree to it, you become a state. You're not a country, you're a state. And you have the monopoly of power, you have a stable financial system, you agreed to have something called the balance of power. So you don't wage war. You know, you don't accept war. It's the balance of power. And finally, you agree to the Westphalian principles. He sells them in a relatively positive way. But here's the thing. It's been like that ever since. Like 1650-ish, this system came into place. Still in place. He's, like I say, this book may as well be called the Westphalian System. The entire book talks about it. But today, it's called the World Community. Not the Westphalian System anymore, but he's constantly referencing it. So, here's the issue with that. This balance of power thing stifles countries. It keeps them down. Like, the positive spin on it is what he said in the book. And, you know, like, you ever wonder things where the water engine keeps getting suppressed and the cure for cancer keeps getting, like, you know, dismissed and that kind of stuff, and Nikola Tesla's energy gets, you know, buried and stuff like that. Is it that? Is that what they mean by a balance of power? Is that what they mean by, like, everybody has to remain at the same kind of level? And what happens when you don't? Here's what happens when you don't. Back then, they would send the war dog, the bulldog, the international strongman to go in and fuck you up. Bam, bam, bam. Bad country, not going along with the Westphalian principles. Bam, bam, bam. Back then, it was England. It was us guys. You know, we had the Navy, we had the Industrial Revolution. Back then, we could go in all these countries who were misbehaving and wage war on them. And round about World War One, it stopped being us and it became America instead. America, who wages wars on countries who have nothing to do with it. American interests in the Middle East, you know. America's just attacking all these people. Why? No reason. Oh yeah, there's a reason. When you really look at how the world is, it's bullshit. The Westphalian system's bullshit. It's not about peace. It's not about... It's about control. It's not about order. It's about control. Because it stops countries from being countries. When you have democracy, when you have people voting, they think they have a say in how their country works. But they don't. Because you have a group of people. And like I say, unnamed. He never names them. He just calls them... He doesn't call them anything. It's weird. He mentions them like so many times and he comes up with a different way of talking about them. They never appeared in the pages of history, these unnamed representatives and stuff like that. Funny, man. What can we call them? Let's call them the Westphalians. It's just easier like that. So, these guys, like I say, the beat countries down and you're not a democracy. Do you realize that? Like, we're not a democracy. And when you read this, it kind of adds up. And you realize that it doesn't matter which puppet is on the hand, Starmer Sunak or bloody Donald Trump and Biden, or soon it's going to be The Rock and Trump. You know, they're taking the piss. Taking the piss, man, because it's the same hands all the time, different puppets. It would be nice to see The Rock get in, though. You know, President The Rock, President Dwayne Johnson, you have to give him his real name. You know, with Foreign Secretary Stephen Austin, and Speaker of the House Kenneth Shamrock, and Head of Finances Kane. You know, it's a piss take. None of these governments under this system are really running the country. They're not really running it in the interest of that country, because that would be the enemy of the Westphalian system. It talks about its enemies. Do you know who its enemies are? Nationalist countries. Interesting. Isn't that interesting? That these countries who want to run themselves, want to have their own stable financial system, we currently have that stable financial system. You know, the recession after recession after the recession, and buildings all boarded up when everybody has the ability to work, but they just boarded up and, everything's sucked up. Stable financial system, that's what they call it. But if a country wants to have its own financial system, like a gold-backed dinar or a labour-backed currency, or whatever, whatever country wants to take care of its own affairs, not allowed. Ooh, no, you're the enemy of the Westphalian system now, and you're going to get beaten down by the current war dog, America, or some other squirrely way. But, that's essentially what the Westphalian system is. It's the conspiracy. When people talk about the conspiracy, the conspirators. This isn't a conspiracy theory book. This is a statesman's book. This is Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who's a global political consultant. Super fucking powerful. And he's telling you, there's a group of people above countries dictating to them how they're allowed to behave. Not a conspiracy theory book. But it's right there in Waterstones. Like I say, fascinating read. And it basically confirmed everything the anarchists say about states. States legitimize violence. They legitimize robbery. They plunder. They wage wars on people. They step on the neck. And that's something Kissinger specifically says. That if a country is rebelling, like the French Revolution, it takes more violence to get it in order. In order. That's what he calls it, Control. Boots on your heads and all that kind of stuff. And something interesting he said about the principles of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, and fraternity, are the polar opposite of the principles of the Westphalian system. It's nice when they tell on themselves like that. And how can they not? How can a world statesman not tell on himself? What is the opposite? What is the opposite of liberty, equality, and fraternity? Domination, control, inequality? Yes. He doesn't say it outright like that. That's essentially what he's pushing. And like I say, this is what the anarchists accuse states of. just being criminals who wear robes and call it something else. So let's get into, what have I got here? Nationalist. Yes. It's not. Alright. Yeah, I've kind of skipped ahead. Because like I said, I didn't want to get stuff wrong on this one. I didn't want to give false information. The book does plenty of that. Like I say, it says that the Americans captured and killed bin Laden. It says that the Arabs did 9/11. Oh, fucking hell, man. So you gotta, like I say, as a conspiracy theorist, you've gotta have your wits about you. But I found that very interesting that globalists and nationalists don't get along. I thought that was dead interesting. But more interesting than that, Kissinger says that anarchism is the natural state of the world. He admits it. He says that without their constant interference, the world would return to its natural state of anarchy. Isn't that nice? To have it confirmed again. That we naturally don't need a ruler. We naturally don't need an authority telling us what to do. And that's why they have to lie to us about these politicians. That's why they have to have the puppet show. Because they know we don't want a group of people over there outside of the country telling this entire country what to do. They know nobody wants that. So they have to put these puppet shows on us. They have to convince people that their vote matters. So anyway, getting back to the nationalist thing. Because I'm not a real expert in nationalism. And when you realise that this globalist system that we're in hates nationalists, you realise that it sees them as the adversary and probably won't speak highly of them. So, looking from what little I know of nationalists, and I've, in my opponent's adversary books, this is going to get read at some point. Look at the size of this fucker. Christ! It's going to take a while to read that one. Maybe I'll get through to it next year. But he is a nationalist. And, like I say, spoiler alert. When I first bought this from Waterstones, I went into the cafe. Now, I was just thumbing through it because it's a big old fucking book. And some guy came over and he fucking ruined it for us. Told us the Jews did it. One Jew joke. How a man whom's a Yusef. Fucking hell. You come into a white country and complain that everybody's white? Come on, man. Shit. Imagine if I went to China and complained everybody was white. It would make no sense. But basically, from what I know of nationalists is... I don't agree with nationalists either because I'm an anarchist. But nationalists, here's the crack with them. I've realised that there's different kinds of nationalist. There's the religious kind who have no borders. They just have an idea. There's the ethnic kind, which is kind of like Hitler. You know what I mean? It's like white skin, shared culture and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the geographical ones. Kind of like America, where it's like, these are our borders, this is our land, and everybody else is other, And it's that other where anarchists can't get along with nationalists. That artificial line they draw called other. That's where we can't get along with them. It's like, anarchists are much more civil, So here's me pitch for anarchism. And nationalists, listen up. Because we basically see you as the same as globalists. You make artificial lines. And so anyway, I don't believe in that. So here's my pitch for anarchism. Anarchists, which is the truth, I think, in my research... My boy, what is property? Started with that one. Fantastic. Anarchists believe in the non-aggression principle. They treat people as they want to be treated. They believe in free expression. They believe in self-ownership. So we can't have slaves or masters. And we don't treat anybody else as slaves or masters. In short, like I say, we treat people like we want to be treated. Can a globalist or a nationalist claim that? No. They treat people as other. The globalists want to take control of everybody. Everybody, like literally everybody. Nationalists want to take control of their own idea. Whatever their dictator decides is theirs. The ethnic race, the land, or the religion, whatever. Now, nationalists tend to be very, very well organised. They'll be probably really good for the people they're behind. And very, very bad for the people who aren't in their team. So, I would obviously promote anarchism. Oh, yeah, but there is a problem with anarchism. This is probably why the world isn't anarchistic right now. We do have a small issue. We can't make a giant war machine like the statists can. We can't make a giant monster that goes invading countries and committing mass genocide and subjugating people on a huge scale. We can't do that. We can't plunder countries. We can't steal and, we can't be as good a criminal as the statists. So, rather than being a weakness, I would like to see that as a strength of anarchism. Yeah. How about we, let's just do it. Let's just get rid of these criminals. Hasn't enough happened? Hasn't enough happened over the last 3 years that everybody should have woken up by now? We're definitely not in control of our country. We're in control, well, we're starting to realise that we are in control of ourselves. But these globalist guys, they're starting to become way more noticeable. Like I say, the World Economic Forum, the WHO, the CDC, just claiming authority over the entire world. And we shouldn't like that. I don't like that. And I think they're realising they're not liked. They're going to have to retreat at some point soon. So to wrap up, 16 minutes. Shit. Thought that would go a bit faster than that. To wrap up, I've already made my pitch. I would like to put anarchism on the table in response to globalism or nationalism. But like I say, we do have an issue in anarchy. We have an organisational problem. We're just two free thinkers. My God, we're two individualists. Very hard to gather us all under the same banner. But maybe, with globalists seeing nationalists and anarchists as enemies, maybe there's some kind of synthesis that can come around here. And I'd like to suggest maybe, as a joke, or maybe not, something close to like Christianity, only without the church, and without the Pope, and without the priests, and a loose interpretation of it. Because I liked a lot of what Jesus said. It's a great doctrine. But I just didn't like the part when he said, turn the other cheek, and, walk a mile with a neighbour. I just crossed that bit out. Unless he's talking about a time when it really, really does come in handy. When somebody's trying to, reactive abuse. Narcissists do this when they don't like you. They'll poke, and they'll do it in a strategic time when they want you to lose your fucking mind. And you go, fuck it. And that's when they win. So when somebody's trying to provoke you, that's a great time to turn the other cheek. And then you get them later. So I can't help but think that part was missed out of the Bible, But I would like to finish this with a prayer. Who'd have thought? An atheist. But I'm kind of jealous of these religious guys getting all the nice words. So let's finish with a prayer. O God of liberty, God of equality, thou who didst place in my heart the sentiment of justice, before my reason could comprehend it, hear my ardent prayer. Thou hast dictated all that I have written. Thou hast shaped my thought. Thou hast directed my studies. Thou hast weaned my mind from curiosity and my heart from attachment, that I might publish thy truth to the master and the slave. I have spoken with what force and talent thou hast given me. It is thine to finish the work. Thou knowest whether I seek my welfare or thy glory, O God of liberty. Ah, perish my memory, and let humanity be free. Let me see from my obscurity the people at last instructed. Let noble teachers enlighten them. Let generous spirits guide them. Abridge, if possible, the time of our trial. Stifle pride and avarice and equality. Annihilate this love of glory which enslaves us. Teach these poor children that in the bosom of liberty there are neither heroes nor great men. Inspire the powerful man, the rich man, him whose name my lips shall never pronounce in thy presence, with the horror of his crimes. Let him be the first to apply for admission to the redeemed society. Let the promptness of his repentance be the ground for his forgiveness. Then, great and small, wise and foolish, rich and poor, will unite in an ineffable fraternity, and singing in unison a new hymn, will rebuild thy altar, O God of liberty and equality. That was from Pierre Joseph Proudhon. He was an anarcho-mutualist. And if that resonated with you, maybe you ought to.